Good afternoon. I'm Shelley Brown, and I've been an RN to BSN online student. The public issue I selected is the critical opioid crisis we are facing in America and the need for increased medication safety. Learning the value of becoming a reflective individual and effective communicator and becoming a change agent helped me understand what is happening surrounding the opioid crisis, especially as I care for patients in the ICU who have overdosed. It matters greatly to me that 47,000 opioid overdose deaths occurred in 2017. That happens to be more than the motor vehicle accidents and homicides combined. It matters to me that last year 4,235 young people perished as a result of prescription overdose deaths, with 50% of those involving opioids. It also is 769,000 children between the ages of 12 and 17 that misused opioids in 2017 that causes me to want to dig deeper. In the state of Iowa where I reside, the number of reported opioid deaths has tripled from 2005 to 2017. This is a huge concern for Iowans, and it makes Iowa stand out as only one of 4 states with dramatic statistics. For me personally, this pulls at my heartstrings because my only sibling was involved in a moped accident when he was 12 years old. He sustained broken bones as a result and was prescribed opioids for his pain. This led my brother down a very destructive road of addictions as he ultimately became addicted to his prescription meds and illegal drugs at this time. His life has involved many criminal issues, incarceration, hospital stays, loss of custody of his only child, and more, and I fully expect my phone to ring one day telling me my only sibling has perished. I would like nothing more in my lifetime than to see an end of this destruction and to be able to help my patients. Opioids have the power to literally change the brain's chemistry by turning off neurons, thus turning on the addiction part by rewiring the brain to stimulate the amount of dopamine. This is why it's critical that children and adolescents with developing brains are not given opioids unless other measures have all been exhausted. Uncovering the simple truth that opioids actually rewire our brains is what helped me to be a reflective individual when I was assigned the Service Learning Project in SSC 235. I chose an agency called Parents as Teachers. When I met with the director, she informed me that she had always wanted to put on a little health fair for her children, and she had 43 children enrolled, some by choice and most by court orders. This project engaged me in habits of great inquiry within the Public Health Department office. I used my critical thinking skills to decide what services would be most beneficial for these children. There was a lot of collaboration and planning involved. It was deemed a success as there was a great turnout and 3 children were flagged for vision deficits and several for hearing issues. As a nurse, I pondered what led them to being ordered by court officials into this program, and then reflected, wanted to know maybe this was the very topic of opioid addictions. Could the parents have been given opioids when they were younger and became addicted, thus causing criminal issues? I put away all my prejudice as to why these parents were enrolled and greeted the parents and children to the door and explained the stations to them. It was rewarding to get to know them and see them interact with their children, all the while making sure that their children were healthy. I believe this experience has prepared me to address my public issue and that many of these parents have had criminal activity associated with drugs, and this is why they are ordered to participate in this program. I'm thankful for the opportunity to understand the value of this valuable program so that I can refer people there and they can receive the support that they need. The most commonly abused prescription opioids are hydrocodone, oxycodone, morphine, codeine, and fentanyl. We must also be aware that 25% of first-time opioid prescriptions for children and adolescents come from dentists. Less than half of the opioids prescribed after dental procedures and tooth extractions are used by those for whom they are prescribed in the first place. My question is, who is using the other half, and how did they get in the wrong hands? All medications must be locked up and put out of sight of children, and medications must be destroyed properly. My second reflective experience was as a result of an assignment in Capstone where we were to investigate our community for gaps of advocacy efforts. I uncovered an exponential amount of deficits within my community and was truly shocked by the findings. From the difficulty with finding the city's website to navigating around it and finding an incomplete resource list, I called many different agencies asking questions, and oftentimes they referred me to another and then another. The whole time I was doing the research, I couldn't help but think of those addicted patients I had cared for in ICU that desperately needed services and assistance. And if they or their loved ones had to conduct an exhaustive search for phone numbers, websites, and such in the way I did, they would simply give up. I wondered if that is why Iowa is one of the 4 states with big concerns. Is it because the lack of services, or are there really advocacy efforts available but it's nearly impossible to find and connect with? This proved to me how important programs and services and well-organized websites are, so that we can do our part to reduce and hopefully eliminate the opioid crisis. This experience will stay with me forever as I move forward with becoming an NP, to understand the roadblocks that my patients have experienced and to always advocate for them to get the help they deserve. I've always wanted to be known as an effective communicator, and that's always been one of my personal goals. I was assigned to interview a nurse leader, and I set up an interview with an RN who runs a busy ER and recently received an award for being a top 100 nurses in the state of Iowa. I immediately noticed how she listened intently, pondered, and then she answered each question. She did not quickly spill out the answer. Her style and my observations were valuable learning experiences for me and made me realize I need to work on my own listening skills as a charge nurse. There were repetitive complaints from the nursing staff regarding our nurse break room. What I learned after I tuned in is that the break room wasn't relaxing for them. I decided to improve it. I selected a relaxing blue-green color and painted the walls on the weekend. I purchased a padded glider and a back massager. Thankfully, I was able to find those things used and in good shape. Lastly, I purchased curtains to go over the institutional-looking mini blinds. I spent very little of my money, and honestly, the transformation was astonishing, not only for the break room, but for morale. And I learned it really is the small things that we do for people that make the biggest impact. This experience prepared me for my public issue by teaching me that when I'm caring for an overdose patient or addict, I must pause, think, and truly listen to their verbal and nonverbal communication in order to assist them in the most effective manner. A standard question that I ask every one of my patients is, what is one thing I can do for you today to make your stay more pleasant? My 85-year-old end-stage COPD patient began to cry and said he would love a hot meal. That was the simplest request for such an ill man, and I quickly called the dietary department. I was in and out of his room frequently because he was so ill and required so many medications and treatments. The patient was still savoring his meal tray after an hour. I was able to piece together that the patient takes a loaf of bread, ham and cheese, and puts it in a small cooler and puts it beside his bed. And that's the meal he makes for himself every day because he's too weak to walk to the kitchen. I asked him how many times that day he had used his rescue inhaler, and he began to cry and said none. I've learned from so many of my classes to be an effective communicator, I must put away biases. Like me thinking, why in the world is this patient who can barely breathe still smoking 2 packs of cigarettes per day? The next time I was in his room, he put his hand on mine and he said, "Thank you. I know you really care about me." He told me he couldn't afford his nebulizers or many of his medications. It made me think of my patients who are addicted to opioids. Maybe they couldn't afford medication or treatment or be able to afford naloxone to have on hand. I told him of a prescription assistance program within our hospital that he could get signed up for. As he sobbed, I knew we made a connection and trust. This example prepared me to address my topic of the opioid crisis by proving to me that it always pays to dig deeper to look for solutions for patients. For the population-focused project in Nursing 476, I conducted the windshield survey. I drove in parts of my community that I don't normally travel in, and I discovered many rental properties that are in disrepair. I also completed the community dimension document where I spent hours in the public health department office doing research. I arranged many meetings with people that I wasn't familiar with or their role, such as the emergency management coordinator. I spent a day shadowing the substance abuse facility staff to learn all about the services that they offer. And I was shocked to learn that we have a methadone clinic right here in our community. There were many surprises, several disappointments, and many questions. I decided not to be foolish and not share this information, so I contacted our local radio stations and ended up doing a morning segment where I explained my project and findings. I also wrote a letter to our editor of our newspaper, doing the same, included my email address, and to my surprise, I received many emails about my findings. This started a lot of interesting conversations for me about change. I sent a letter to the administrator of our local hospital and asked him to please spend a day at the public health department office and urged him not to cut their budget and staff any further. I contacted several city council members and one agreed to meet me. I highlighted issues with the city's website, gaps of advocacy, and many others. I showed him my 50-slide PowerPoint presentation as well. This experience prepared me for my public issue by spending the day at Zion Recovery Services. And I now feel more equipped to understand the challenges that addicts face and the resources that are available. I feel I developed a level of cultural competence, respect for others, and created a voice for myself within my community to create change. I had never heard of the Teach-Back method before, but learned about a seminar, so decided to attend. As a nurse, one of the things that seems to jade us is the revolving door patient. You know, the one that comes back again and again for the same thing. This seminar broke down the problems surrounding the current patient education process that we all use. You know, the 5-page discharge instructions that we quickly run through to get the patient to sign and out the door. The Teach-Back method is a system designed to close that loop. It's one that makes it so that the medical professional can assess whether or not the patient understood the information that was taught to them. If a patient is given a new medication, the nurse explains that to the patient, then asks the patient to explain back in their own words what was taught of them. This is a way that you can clearly measure the patient's understanding. Otherwise, patients are too intimidated or embarrassed to ask questions because they don't understand. I asked my peers about it and explained it to them and presented it at a staff meeting. I took the initiative to effect change for the greater good of our patients and for better outcomes for our hospital. After several months, this was a standard of care that we adopted, and we decided we wanted to keep it. This experience prepared me for my public issue in taking care of my patients who have overdosed and or are addicted, because it's important that they understand how their medication works in their brain and why they are addicted in order to empower them towards change. And in conclusion, I want to thank you for my valuable education. I will never stop advocating and educating people, patients, and certainly myself regarding the current epidemic regarding opioids and the need for medication safety. I want to be part of the solution and will definitely carry this with me as a future nurse practitioner. I want to say thank you for creating me to be an educated citizen, a better nurse, and a better reflector, communicator, and spurring me on to become a change agent. I can say with 100% certainty that I would not have done the research, I would not have dug deeper and learned to understand my patients better had I not become educated with what the citizen goals are and being taught. Thank you.